The first thing my fiancée said after I paid off $60,000 of her debt was that she had lost all feelings for me. The second thing she said was, "You'll understand someday." And the third thing she did was quietly remove the engagement ring from her finger and place it on the marble kitchen counter of my townhouse in Scottsdale, Arizona. My name is Carter Whitfield, and until that moment, I believed I understood the woman I planned to marry. Her name was Sloane Harrington. Sloane had always been composed in the way people from old money families tend to be. Her voice was calm, even when she delivered sentences capable of splitting a life in half. 6 hours earlier, we had been sitting in the private office of a financial advisor named Gregory Sandoval. Gregory had just finished processing the final payment that cleared Sloane's outstanding debt. $60,000. Credit cards. A private student loan. A lingering personal loan she once described as a mistake from her 20s. I transferred the money without hesitation, because that is what you do when you are about to marry someone. You build a future. You solve problems together. Or at least that is what I thought. Sloane had squeezed my hand when the confirmation document printed from Gregory's office printer. She said softly, "You have no idea how much this means to me." I believed her. Now, she stood in the kitchen of the house we had spent 8 months renovating together. The same kitchen where we had argued about backsplash tiles and wine refrigerator sizes. The same kitchen where she once told me she could see herself raising children here. Her ring sat between us like a quiet accusation. "I didn't plan it like this," Sloane said. Her voice was steady. "Too steady." "Then explain it," I replied. She folded her arms gently across her chest. "I thought the pressure was coming from the debt," she said. "But once it was gone, I realized the feeling was gone too." "You're telling me that clearing $60,000 made you realize you don't love me." "I'm telling you it made me realize the truth," she answered. The silence that followed was heavy enough to bend the air between us. Before we go further, pause for a moment and think about this situation. If you had just sacrificed a large part of your savings to help the person you plan to marry, and they ended the relationship hours later, would you see that as honesty or betrayal? I wish I could say my first reaction was anger. It wasn't. It was confusion, because Sloane Harrington was not careless with words. She had spent years building a career as a corporate attorney in Phoenix. People like Sloane calculated outcomes before speaking. So when she said she had lost all feelings, it didn't sound emotional. It sounded final. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. "I'll move out tonight," she said. Just like that. No tears. No apology. Just logistics. Tonight. Yes. The woman who had spent 2 years building a life with me was now discussing our separation like a lease agreement ending. "You waited until after the debt was gone," I said slowly. Her eyes flickered. "Only for a second." "I didn't wait," she replied. But something in her tone told me she had. The next 40 minutes passed in a strange blur. Sloane walked upstairs. She packed 2 suitcases with quiet efficiency. She didn't take the framed photographs from the hallway. She didn't take the books she had carefully arranged in the living room shelves. She didn't even take the espresso machine she insisted we needed. She took only clothes and a laptop. When she came downstairs, the house looked exactly the same, except for the absence of a future. "I'll arrange the rest later," she said. I nodded, and then she left. No slam doors. No dramatic exit. Just the soft closing sound of the front door shutting behind her. I stood alone in a house that suddenly felt far too large for one person. The next morning, I woke up to 3 messages from people I didn't expect. The first was from Gregory Sandoval, the financial advisor. The second was from a man named Reed Calloway. The third was from Sloane herself. Reed Calloway's message was the shortest. It read, "We should probably talk." I didn't know Reed well. He was a venture capital consultant who occasionally attended the same charity events as Sloane. He also happened to be recently divorced. Gregory's message was more formal. He wrote, "Carter, I noticed something unusual regarding yesterday's payment, and think it's worth discussing." But it was Sloane's message that stopped me cold. She wrote, "I hope someday you understand why I had to do this." Had to. That word stayed in my head longer than the rest of the sentence. I drove to Gregory's office first. His office overlooked a quiet golf course on the north side of Scottsdale. Gregory was a cautious man who rarely spoke without choosing his words carefully. "Carter," he said as soon as I sat down, "there's something you should know about the debt we cleared yesterday." My stomach tightened. "What about it?" Gregory turned his monitor toward me. The loan documents filled the screen. Then he highlighted one specific section. Borrower name, Sloan Harrington. Co-signer, Reed Calloway. My chest felt suddenly hollow. "You're telling me the man who texted me this morning co-signed the debt it just paid off?" Gregory nodded slowly. "Yes." The room went very quiet, because in that moment the timeline of the previous day started to rearrange itself inside my mind. And suddenly Sloan's calm behavior made far more sense than it had before. But the truth wasn't quite what I expected. Later that afternoon, I met Reed Calloway at a restaurant in downtown Scottsdale. Reed was tall, composed, and visibly uncomfortable. "I didn't know she was going to leave you yesterday," he said immediately. "Then what did you know?" I asked. Reed exhaled slowly. "I knew she planned to pay off the loan this year." "That's it." "Yes. And the two of you?" "We dated briefly 3 years ago," he said. "We ended things when she moved to Phoenix." The story was starting to look less like a conspiracy and more like something far more complicated. "Then why text me?" I asked. Reed looked directly at me. "Because that debt wasn't just hers," he said quietly. "It came from a business investment we both made that failed." The pieces shifted again. "She asked me to co-sign because the loan covered both of us," he continued. "And now it's gone." "You're welcome," I said dryly. Reed didn't smile. "She didn't leave you because of the money," he said. "Then why?" He paused. "Because she told me she felt like she owed you the rest of her life after yesterday." The sentence hung in the air like a difficult truth. And suddenly something inside my anger softened into something else. Something closer to understanding. Because the more I replayed the last 6 hours of our relationship, the clearer something became. Sloan Harrington didn't leave because she was heartless. She left because she was afraid of becoming obligated to someone she no longer loved. And in her mind, staying would have been a different kind of betrayal. Now I want to ask you something honestly. If you realized you no longer loved the person who had just made a huge sacrifice for you, would you stay out of gratitude or leave out of honesty? I never saw Sloan again after that week. She moved to Seattle 2 months later for a new legal position. The house in Scottsdale eventually sold the following spring. And the $60,000 I once thought was the cost of betrayal eventually felt more like the price of clarity. Because sometimes the most painful truths arrive at the exact moment someone finally stops pretending.